to you, Guyana, and welcome to Facing the Nation. As always, I'm Malika Ramsey. We do apologize for starting a bit late, but you know, whenever we start late, the program is usually more fun, much more fun. We are in, I'll get right to it. As usual, our program is split in half. I'll have one conversation in the first half and then another in the second half. This week we saw it was all over the news and all over social media. We were celebrating teachers this week. I shouldn't say we still are celebrating teachers this week. Yesterday was World Teachers Day, but it's an entire week that would have been designated to observing and celebrating teachers. And indeed, we should celebrate teachers because without them, there can be absolutely no profession. People like to talk about the fact that doctors are the most important because they take care of our health. Without teachers, you can't have doctors. So at the end of the day, I know teachers take the cake. It is my pleasure to welcome back to our program Miss Coretta McDonald. She is no stranger to this program, and of course, she's no stranger to Guyana. She is the General Secretary. She holds many hats, but today I'm going to focus on one. She is the General Secretary of the Guyana Teachers Union. Accompanying her is Mr. who I just met, and I'm happy that I met him, Mr. Collis Nichols. He is Regional Vice President, Demerara, of course, GTU, and he's also a teacher, and he'll be telling you all about that profession, and so we'll talk about some of the challenges and so on, because again, you know, teaching is a female-dominant career. Whether fortunately or unfortunately, it is a female-dominant career. So will be wonderful to hear from a male teacher today on Facing the Nation for the very first time. So to both of you, welcome and thank you for coming.
Thank you very much for having us.
All right, great. And to you, Happy Teachers Day.
Thank you very much.
And Happy Teachers Day to you too, madam. All right. Before we even talk about you being a teacher as a male in a female-dominant environment, so to speak, as we celebrate, well, I should say wrap up the celebrations, of course, this is to General Secretary McDonald. As we wrap up the celebration and the observations of Teachers Day 2017, how do you feel as a country? How far have we gone in terms of more or less continuing to celebrate and uplifting our teachers?
Malika, let me say thanks for having us again, and good afternoon to everyone. We should be celebrating Teachers Day every day. Let me say that. For too long, teachers have not been given the kind of recognition that we ought to have. And like you said earlier, teachers are the ones who shape the minds. Teachers are the ones who create all professions. But yet, little or none at all recognize the efforts, the contributions, the dedication, the commitment that teachers have been given to making this nation what we want this nation to be. You know, just last Tuesday, I was talking to a group of teachers from the Buxton branch, and we had a Junior Minister of Public Health, Minister Karen Cummins, there. And I was saying to them, teachers, yes, I know that we have some teachers, and in every profession you would have some of the workers in the sectors who are not up to the mark that they ought to be.
Yeah.
But yet, we shouldn't be using one paintbrush to paint everybody.
Agreed.
And so teachers need to get the kind of recognition that we're supposed to get. And I was calling on parents and students and everybody in the community to support the teachers or continue to support teachers, so that with your support, we as teachers would be able to move not only your children, but we'll be able to move our nation to a higher level.
Indeed.
And you know, we don't have that because we look at, the teachers, yeah, they're supposed to go to school and teach. But the doctors, yes. And the authorities, yes. But who create them? Teachers did create them. And so I was saying to Minister Cummins, as teachers, we're tired of waiting in long lines when we go to the health centers and when we go to the hospitals, even when we have accidents in school and we take our children there, the school child, with his or her uniform on, you have to wait in a long line. I was saying to her, you know, could you put some system in place so that priority could be given to children when they're taken there with their teachers because of some injury, or to teachers when they have to require the kind of services? Could we give some priority to teachers and let persons in the surroundings, the communities, everywhere know that teachers are here and that we
Exactly.
need to look up to teachers. Those who are defaulting, we are going to deal with them. But those who are there, committed, giving 35 and 29 and all these years, we should be paying homage to them.
And it's interesting that you said that, especially in the case where the teacher, if the child is injured at school and you have to take them to the emergency room, it's really troubling that they would have to spend long hours waiting, because in that case the teacher is becomes the parent, and in the event that anything happens to this child, you will have to answer the question as the teacher. Collis, let's talk about some of the challenges in which the General Secretary talked about, and how as a teacher you would have dealt with some of those challenges, and how do you feel we can overcome some of them?
All right, thank you very much, Malika, for having us on your program.
Very welcome.
As a male teaching for almost 16 years, it's been very challenging in the profession. Because as you rightly said, it's a female-dominant profession. And males coming into it, we find it difficult to cope with all the changes they are.
Really?
Let's take, for instance, the salary we receive is not attractive to males. And therefore, as a male, having to deal with a family with such a salary is hard. When you have to think about your rent and your utilities and all the other bills, it's very difficult as a male, because remember, males are being seen as the breadwinner of the home.
Yes.
And you have to, as a male, uphold your responsibilities, whether you like it or not. Despite whatever resources you have to have your responsibilities in order. Or you get help. But being in the profession as it is, parents especially look at you as a male to be this macho person.
Yes.
The one who should be stern at all time, the one who should be the stickler for discipline, the one who should be there to correct all the wrong of the child or children in the school. And so, me being at Company Road Primary where I teach, I'm like the head teacher. Not substantively the head teacher, but seen as the head teacher because I'm the lone male at the school.
In the entire school, you are the only male teacher.
I am the only male teacher there.
Wow.
And they're lucky to have him.
Yes.
Because in our community, I am the only male teacher among the 3 primary schools.
So, just for clarity, so the viewers can understand why I keep stressing about this female-dominant area of work. You're not only the only male in the school, male teacher in the school,
but among the primary schools in my community, I am the only male teacher. So you see, there is a lot of pressure on me, because you're seen as the father figure, you're seen as a disciplinarian, you're seen as this person who should be there even when there is no one there. Because of course, as the man, you should be at the helm of everything else.
Everything else, yes.
So it's a difficult task to complete in one day, or even a number of years. Going back to history, we would have recognized that teachers were seen as the pillars of any society. But as time unfolds, we are not seeing that anymore, because in the profession itself has lost its way in society.
I want you to pause right there. He said the profession of itself has lost its way. How can, and I'm going to allow you to continue indeed, how can the GTU now step in? I'm sorry if I'm just throwing this to the GTU. Yes, sometimes, and I believe that the shoulders of the GTU are very big. How can the GTU now help to bring back the importance of this profession?
All right. GTU, as the organization that represents teachers, we have not only been dealing with and bargaining, and some people would say we're very cantankerous sometimes and confrontational,
Yes.
but that's not the issue. We don't only deal with salary increases, but we deal with other professional issues, upgrading of teachers, giving out incentives for teachers who perform exceedingly well, and we talk about support system in place for teachers. We talk about upgrading our syllabuses in schools. We have some syllabuses there that have been there since I was a scout.
Yeah.
And in this changing technological world, we need to come up to par if we want to be on par with our colleagues in the Caribbean. And so these are some of the issues that GTU has been fighting for. Over the years, we've been able to climb the ladder, and we've gotten somewhere, but there's still a lot more to be done. GTU cannot do this on its own. because the policies come from the Ministry of Education.
Yeah.
So GTU is hoping that as we continue to talk with our colleagues, that they would see the wisdom in what we're talking about, and they would want to come on board and have these implemented in terms of the recognition that we want to give to teachers. You see, sometimes people get away with monies and finances, but that's not the only
issue.
That's not the only issue or the only reward
Yeah.
that you can give to persons. There are so many other things you can give to persons, and teachers are one such group.
But added to that
Go ahead.
also, professionalism is big on the list. Because what we recognize coming from the GTU's perspective is that many of us in the profession, we would have lost some contact with professionalism. Every profession has its ethics, its standards, its norms. But I really can't explain the phenomenon behind it, but I've recognized that professionalism, in some respect, we would have lost that in the teaching profession. And so, ever so often, as GTU, as executive members of the union, when we go to speak to our members, we make certain that they understand essentially professionalism in the profession.
Do you find difficulty in balancing as a teacher who is active and an executive at the GTU, or do you find it easier to put forward some of the troubles and so on that are occurring and challenges occurring in the profession of itself?
There are times when it can be difficult, but
Okay.
generally speaking, I find it very easy, because what I try to do with the teachers, I address wherever I go, I try to show them in reality what's happening and how you can embrace that with these very solutions. You see, ever so often we don't take the time, whether you're a normal person or you're an executive or wherever you are, we do not take the time to understand from the teacher's perspective or the employee's perspective. We sit, we listen to the issue, and we start to cast blame. But oftentimes what we need to do is to understand from the other party's perspective what are the problems they're having and how we can find solutions for those problems. Teachers are not unique to problems. Ms. McDonald and I, we are not unique to problems. We deal with problems every day. As a matter of fact,
On a personal level too.
yes, on my way coming here, I spoke to about 5 teachers on my cell phone. And all that I'm doing is to find solutions for their problems. Because they look to you for that. They believe GTU can do that for them. As their union representative, we do that every day.
Okay. Despite all of the challenges, General Secretary McDonald, are you in a position, or I should say, are you willing to say that teachers are in a better place now? I mean, even we can go as far back as we want, but have there been progress gradually or continually over the years?
There has been some gradual progress.
Okay.
Just recently, teachers were given a laptop, and so teachers are able to use that to make their lessons more interactive and to make research and all those things easier for them, so that when they stand in front of their charges, that they can deliver. In terms of the day-to-day activities, we still see us lagging behind in terms of our operations day-to-day as teachers, because when we talk about our children and making them rounded children,
Yes.
in many of our schools in Georgetown, there is no recreational facilities for the children. And so you find all the children have all the energy pepped up inside of them. They either run in the corridors in school or in the classroom because there's nowhere for them to go. And these are some of the issues that we've been addressing all the time.
Have you been getting responses? And I'm happy that you brought that issue about not enough space. And I'm going to come to Collis on this in terms of what is happening at his school. But I'm glad you raised it, the fact that there's not enough space. There's not enough space in some of the schools where they can, I should say, put all the pent-up energy there. Because we have another problem in society where we keep complaining that today's children, they're into the gadgets and the phones. They're always inside. They're always on something. So they don't understand the fun that we had when we were growing up. Have you been able to, in a sense, break that problem down in terms of possibly getting assistance for these schools where there are not enough recreational facilities?
Well, over the years, we have been given lots and lots of promises.
Okay.
We are hoping that persons are going to see the wisdom in making our children rounded children and not have the children fixed to their gadgets. children need to play. They need to
Yes.
explode when they go out in the fields. And if we don't give them those kinds of opportunities, then we will make them semi-nerds. You know, and the thing is, at the ministries level and at GTU's level, we ought to promote not only 21 and 25 and 19 subjects,
Yes.
but we ought to promote sports and music and poetry and drama and all these things in our schools, which we don't see happening on a wide scale. The thing is, we have become an exams-oriented nation. And so we forget that sports and drama and co-curricular activities, they are also a part of the child's life to make this rounded individual that we want them to be.
And I guess this is where the family would come in terms of working.
But the thing is, if you at this level, ministry, GTU, if we don't promote that, then the parents will not buy into it.
Understood.
If we keep promoting academics, then the parents will
Will
go
buy
there,
into
because in many instances we find around this time when we're having our sports, you'll find many parents saying, I don't want my child to run. And the child might have the ability as an athlete to either do the distances or the sprints or the jumps or the throws, but parents are saying that isn't going to get you anywhere, books. And because sometimes we do the same thing
Yes,
in terms
we're
of
guilty
not
of it.
promoting sports, parents run with that. And so I'm saying that in order, if we want to get to the level of Trinidad and Jamaica and St. Lucia and St. Kitts in terms of our athletes performing, our students performing on both sides, then we ought to put the systems in place. We ought to have physical education back into our schools. We ought to have coaches in our schools, phys ed teachers who would be recognized, because we have a few in the system, but they're not being, as a matter of fact, they've been complaining for the longest while that they're being treated as stepchildren. Because with phys ed, you're not moving, there's no path for you to move in the system, up the system. So you're just left there. And so what the phys ed teachers do, they change course.
Yes.
So rather than continue with phys ed, they move to another subject area where they can be recognized. And so it all comes back to us, the policymakers. If we don't put the systems in place, then we're not going to have the kind of results we want.
Fortunately for where I teach, we have a very large field.
Ah.
So we are engaged in a lot of sport activities.
And you find that they're willing, despite the distraction of the gadgets, the modern day gadgets?
Yes, they're very willing to participate. As a matter of fact, the branch in which I operate, Buxton branch, I just left our nursery funding. And I can safely say the parents, there was a lot of parental involvement.
Okay.
Even the education officer who declared the activity open this morning congratulated the parents on their involvement. Just before I left, the parents were gearing themselves to have an 80-meter dash. So that in itself showed that the parents were arms in arms with the activity that we were promoting and the importance of having athletics sports in the school. However, not many schools are fortunate to have what my school has. Because if you look at one of the sister primary schools, Friendship Primary, for example, they have no space to play. If you look at many other schools on the East Coast, no space to play. So as GS rightly said, the children have nowhere to disseminate that pent-up energy. At Company Road, they can play because they have a lot of space. And oftentimes when persons come to see us at the school, they always envy us for the space that we have.
It's a good thing to be envied
But we
for.
make very good use, excellent use of the space, because what we would say to the schools within that neighborhood, you can come over, you can use our space on Friday, whether you have your physical education, whether you want to do a practice session for your inter-house or inter-school, we have that in place.
That's in place. Okay, all right. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm really enjoying this conversation, but I have to begin to wrap up with you soon. But before I let you go, and I'm going to start with you, GS McDonald, before I get more greetings and wrap-up sentiments from the acting teacher right now. What would the GTU want at this time to ask government? Of course, and when I say government, obviously, I mean the Ministry of Education. What would you want at this time and should be achieved by the time we are ready to celebrate teachers in 2018? What is the GTU asking for this time?
One of the first things that the GTU would want to ask for is that we complete very, very quickly the proposal GTU would have submitted to the ministry, and that includes salaries and non-salaries benefits.
Okay.
We have found that teachers who would have dedicated their lives to this profession, to the children of this nation, sometimes they retire without being able to access some of the benefits that they ought to have access. And with the long delay of this multi-year agreement, of course, when we would have signed that agreement, it's going to be retroactive. But if a teacher dies tomorrow, what? And she was supposed to receive a duty-free concession. It can't happen anymore. And so we're asking that we should not have these processes being delayed for so long. 2016 would have passed, nothing happened. 2017 is coming to an end very quickly, and I'm hoping that before this year comes to an end, that we'll have that multi-year agreement being addressed. Okay. Outside of that, we're asking that the professional aspect for our teachers in terms of upgrading, not upgrading classes, but upgrading programs in terms of continuous education in the fields that you're performing in, whether it's science or language or social studies, whichever field, that we continue to have those programs being run so that not only teachers in Georgetown, but teachers across this country can have access to some of those programs, which would help them to be better teachers when they have to stand in front of their classrooms. We have recognized that our society is plagued with ills, and the person who will have to deal with those issues are the teachers. Indeed. Because when the children come into your classrooms, they display all that happens in the area or in the environment that they come from. And teachers are not trained in these areas. Teachers are not trained to deal with children who are abused sexually. Teachers are not trained to deal with children who are abused emotionally and all the other ills. And so we find that when the children come to school, teachers can do so much and no more. And so we're asking that consideration be given. If we want to have rounded students in our schools, that we need to put what we can do. I know that we're not going to be able to fill all the schools with counselors, but we can do clusters and have schools in clusters, and we have counselors who are efficient and effective to be able to function.
Okay, great. Thank you. Of course, with as we get some round sentiments from you now, Collis, in terms of, what do you personally, what do you want for teachers, and what would you like to say to teachers who are probably, and I mean the GS did raise a lot of the challenges and so on. What do you want to say to teachers who at this point I might as well change my career?
I would tell them not to. I would say to them that teaching, let's look past having monetary benefits from teaching and look for intrinsic motivation and reward. Because as I said on the program yesterday, when you step into a bank and you see that long line, it deters you from going.
Oh, yes.
But then nowhere you would hear someone saying, sir, and you're looking around to see who that is. And when you look around, you recognize it's somebody you would have taught. Come, sir, come this way.
Indeed.
You feel great. As a teacher, when you teach an examination class, and those children go to QC and the Bishop's High, and you're on the mountain top. I remember my first year at grade 6, teaching grade 6. One of my pupils had the Bishop's High. I felt like a champion.
Yes, as you should.
So that motivation, that reward you feel, that inner motivation and reward, that's all that matters. Okay. And when you see them blossom into those various careers, lawyer, doctor, and so on, you can tell yourself years after, you would have made significant impact into that child's life.
If you keep talking like this, I might just change my profession today. But I'm not as skilled as
no, but we can groom you.
You
so
can
you
groom
can,
me.
Yes, you can able to get that skill.
I'll think about it because I want that rewarding feeling too. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on Facing the Nation. Viewers, if you're now tuning in, you missed a great conversation. Of course, I would have been chatting with the General Secretary of the Guyana Teachers Union, Ms. Coretta McDonald, and of course, Collis Nichols, who is the Regional Vice President, GTU, of course, Demar. Once again, thank you so much. It has been a pleasure having you on.
And thank you for having us.
All right, great. What we'll do now is take a quick break. On the other side of the break, we'll be talking with the new president of the UGSS. Of course, that is the University of Guyana Student Council, and he has some other members with him, and we'll have another great conversation. But again, for those of you who missed this and you follow me on social media, the conversation will be on social media before the day's end. This is Facing the Nation. Stay tuned. And thanks for staying with this edition of Facing the Nation. The second half of the program, we are talking about the University of Guyana. And of course, you know, the University of Guyana is a very popular topic, popular conversation here on Facing the Nation because the vice, I think I just had a senior moment, but the vice chancellor is always here and always giving us updates and so on. But today I am having some young people who are recently victorious. We know that we saw in the news, and it was widely advertised on social media, that the University of Guyana had its annual elections during last week, and it is my pleasure to have for the very first time on this program part of a winning team. Not that the others are losers, but in every competition, in every election, there must be someone who or some group that